So good morning, everyone. We thank you all for taking the time out to join us for this webinar this morning. I'm requesting that we give it a minute or two, allow some of our other participants that had registered to kind of sign in. So let's give it a minute or two, and then we'll be able to kickstart our session. Thank you.
There are 12 people. Oh, you're like.
Okay, so I think we are good to start the session. The rest of the participants will keep joining us as we start. So good morning once again, and thank you so much for taking time to attend this webinar. Yeah, this webinar has been organized by the Deal Flow Facility that we will be telling you about shortly. But for now, I would like to introduce to you two people. I'll let Mercy, who works with me at the Deal Flow Facility, introduce herself. And then we'll also have Mark from ICPAU give us a brief introduction. And after that, I will briefly tell you about the Deal Flow Facility and how and why it is important that we organize this session. So Mercy, over to you.
Thanks, Brenda. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure meeting you all. I hope you enjoy the session today. My name is Mercy Mangini, the investment officer at the Deal Flow Facility.
Thank you, Mercy. Over to you, Mark.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Brenda. My name is Mark Omona. I work with the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. I lead the Standards and Regulation Directorate at ICPAU. I like to think of myself as a compliance officer, if you like, and we'll talk a bit more about that as I make the presentation. But very excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. And I'll also introduce myself. Brenda Amoni is my name. I'm a portfolio relationship manager with the Deal Flow Facility. And I'll also just give a brief about the Deal Flow Facility. This is a facility that is housed under financial sector deepening. We are funded by the European Union and supported by Capital Markets Authority. The three institutions birthed the Deal Flow Facility as a way to bridge the gap between the gap to fund funding for our growth stage, or what we will call SMEs. So a study was conducted, and we noticed that most of the SMEs or growth stage companies have challenges accessing long-term capital from the mainstream financial services sector, and those are the banks. So as such, they decided to come up with this as a way to kind of link these enterprises to investors. So we also noticed that we have, the investors who are willing to deploy money into the country. However, they are not aware or informed, one, and secondly, they do not find that the SMEs are investment ready. So what the deal flow facility ideally is kind of a matchmaking facility. So we link enterprises, or the SMEs as you would call them, to investors, and in between there we offer business development support and technical assistance to make them investment ready. So investors normally want to invest their money in companies that will give them a good return, and for this to happen, they'll only invest in companies that they feel are ready to uptake and ready to operate in a way that will give them a return on their investment. And most of our SMEs struggle with certain areas in their different area in operations. And as the deal flow facility, one of our objectives is to basically grow the ecosystem. That is to ensure that these SMEs are trained, ready, and are operating as in a way that will basically find them attractive. And after that training and business development support, we link them up to investors. We have a pool of investors who are willing to deploy money. And these investors include private equity firms, venture capital firms, or family-owned businesses that are willing to really invest in some of these companies. So as such, as part of our business development support, we work with a number of institutions. We've partnered with a number of institutions to ensure that we offer these companies the kind of support that would basically help them achieve that objective. ICPAU is one such partner. We have partnered with them to basically help us in terms of business development support. And we already have some SMEs that have applied to the deal flow facility. And in working with them, we noticed that some of them struggle in the area of accounting, whether it's in how they prepare their financials or how they interact with their auditors. Some of them do not even know where to get auditors or how to start. They have questions around cost, questions around confidentiality. So based on that, we have partnered with ICPAU, like I mentioned, and it's on this it's on this basis that we are here this morning to kind of demystify this area. And we thank you, Mark Omona from ICPAU, for taking time out, and we look forward to an interactive session. Please feel free to ask questions. Let's make it as interactive as possible, and I hope that we can definitely leave this session more knowledgeable than we have come this morning. Thank you, Mark. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Brenda, for that introduction, and good morning once again to all the participants on this call. As I mentioned, I work with the ICPAU, and we're very excited to partner with the deal flow facility and provide information to the different stakeholders about what we do as accountants and how we can help you. So in the conversation today, and I was given about 50 minutes or so, this is what I intend to talk through. I'll explain a little bit about ICPAU, who we are, and then get into the meat of the discussion to look at what we term characteristics of SMEs. And then I'll speak a bit about the role of accountants as business advisors and how accountants support SMEs. Then we'll speak specifically about audit, the role of audit and the value of an audit. And then we'll speak a little bit about the considerations you should have in choosing your auditor. And then I'll touch on how to prepare for an audit. And then finally, unethical behavior and our role as a regulator to address such practice if it ever emerges. So as Brenda has indicated, I look forward to any questions that you might have. Within the time we have, I might touch on some areas lightly, but we can have further discussion on those either in subsequent discussions or via questions that you raise throughout this presentation. So I'll get straight into it. First, by talking about ICPAU. I hope that you have heard about ICPAU. ICPAU in full is the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Uganda. So ICPAU is established under a law. We came into being in 1992, so we're 30 years old this year actually. But we operate now under the amended Accountants Act, which was enacted in 2013. So the Accountants Act 2013 is the law that we operate under. So we're body established by an act of parliament. And ICPAU in itself is a national professional accountancy organization, and what that means is that ICPAU is, first of all, the regulator of the accountancy profession in Uganda. And when I talk about accountancy, I mean accountancy in a very broad term. So that encompasses anyone who does accounting related work, and that includes auditors. So ICPAU is the regulator of the accountancy profession in Uganda. It is a standard setter. I'll talk maybe a bit about that later in the presentation. What that means is ICPAU as a regulator sets the standard, sets requirements that accountants and auditors are required to comply with in doing their work. And then finally, as a professional accountancy organization, ICPAU is a member body. So each of these accountants that we'll talk about are required to be members of ICPAU and regulated by the body. So what the law, the Accountants Act of 2013 that I talked about, what it requires ICPAU to do is in two broad areas. First is to regulate and maintain the standard of accountancy in Uganda. And what that means is that the body, ICPAU, through its governing council, is required to set standards of accounting and auditing in Uganda. And those standards are generally based on internationally accepted principles and standards. So for purposes of Uganda, the Council of ICPAU has adopted what we call International Financial Reporting Standards, International Standards on Auditing for the auditors, International Financial Reporting Standards for small and medium-sized entities, and International Public Sector Accounting Standards for the public sector. Over and above that, the work of regulating and maintaining a standard also means that we register, where we first of all train. So we enroll students who undertake the professional courses that we offer. And once they have completed the course, they are then eligible to become members of the institute and must subscribe to ICPAU and meet what we call continuing professional development requirements. So all of that is part of the regulation that we do to maintain the standard of accountancy in Uganda. Secondly, is to prescribe and regulate the conduct of accountants and practicing accountants. What that means is, as a regulator, it is our role to ensure that accountants conduct themselves ethically. And to do that, we have in place a code of ethics, the professional code of ethics that every accountant is required to abide by. And where they don't, we have mechanisms to bring them to book, to ensure that they are compliant, and they can be sanctions imposed in case they don't meet those requirements. So ICPAU belongs to various bodies, but I'll highlight these two because they're quite important. One is the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, which is a regional grouping for bodies such as ICPAU across Africa. In fact, the Pan-African Federation of Accountants is currently the vice president of the association, is a member of ICPAU. Then the International Federation of Accountants, which is now the global body to which all professional accountancy organizations subscribe. So think of any professional body across the world, they will probably belong to the International Federation of Accountants. And belonging to that body requires that we meet certain obligations, what are called statements of membership obligations. And those relate to things such as education, the content of the training that we provide, the quality assurance program that we have in place, the standards that we are required to adopt and implement, and then the investigation and discipline that I've already talked about. So in terms of the services that we provide as the Institute, you'll see that we offer accountancy services. So hopefully at some point you've interacted with a student, most likely an employee working in an organization or working in an audit firm who is currently undertaking our courses, particularly the Certified Public Accountants course. So that's a course that we offer, which will enable someone to become a member of the Institute and become a professional accountant in that sense. Now, once you've completed the course, then you're eligible for admission to our Institute, and you become a member of the profession, which then gives you the right to use the title of Certified Public Accountant, or to refer generally to yourself as a professional accountant in Uganda. Now, once you are a member of the Institute, then you're required, as I mentioned, to comply with a code of ethics. So we discipline any members who fail to live up to the principles in our code of ethics. We prescribe professional standards. I've already talked about those, and also issue certificates of practice and licenses. What those are the licenses that enable one to provide audit services. So once you become a member and you wish to provide audit services or to become an auditor and offer your services to the public, then you require a certificate of practice and license from us. And we have a rigorous process prior to you getting that certificate, which includes inspection of your premises on an annual basis and provision of returns and so much information relating to the work that you do. So we provide training, which is, as I mentioned, part of our continuing professional development. So the number of seminars, workshops that we conduct to enable our members stay up to date and be competent to deliver the services to you, the SMEs. There's a magazine that we issue again for information and reference by our members, but many times it's also very useful for the wider public. You can access that magazine on our website, www.icpau.co.ug. So if you go there, you should be able to find a link to the magazine website. We also advise government on matters of financial accountability and management. So the law gives us the opportunity to recommend to government advice on policy matters, on legislation that is being developed, regulations that are being developed in different sectors. So we provide this advice on a very routine basis, and many times we get inquiries or requests from the Ministry of Finance to give such advice. So getting into what I was invited to talk about, and I thought a good starting point is to think about what an SME is and what are those characteristics. So at a global level, it's recognized that SMEs play a very important role in innovation, in employment, and impact the economy generally. So that's not just in Uganda or Africa, but globally, even in the most developed economies. And globally speaking, SMEs represent between 85% and in some areas up to 99% of the business population. So they account for more than half of the private sector value added and 2/3 of employment. So SMEs are very critical, even at a global level. So they're very important sector of the economy. In Uganda in particular, SMEs account for over 90% of all business entities and employ more than 70% of Ugandans and account for 8% of our manufactured output and nearly 75% of GDP. So it goes without saying that our economic development and growth is tagged to SMEs and the ability to grow and any support that can be provided to them is very critical for us as a country, as a nation. So SMEs have many challenges, and SMEs by nature are fairly informal in operations. They tend to have inefficient and sometimes uncompetitive practices, and all of these make the entities highly vulnerable. You keep hearing the remark that many SMEs don't make it past their third or fifth birthday. And a lot of that is tied to the informality and the inefficiency. So it's very important that there's targeted effort to support growth and vibrancy of SMEs, because as already indicated, this has implications for our economic growth and the diversification of our economic base. But also as a source of innovation. Entrepreneurs working in various SMEs come up with a lot of important innovations. So there are numerous challenges that SMEs face in the area of compliance costs, in terms of poor management systems, limited information, and they also have, they lack incentives for formalization. The research also tells us that they lack internal capacities. They struggle with complex tax systems. So those are some of the challenges that SMEs report that they are dealing with. So where do accountants fit into this? And on this slide, then I'll talk a little bit about business advice. So it's useful to think of accountants in a broader sense as business advisors to SMEs. If you've interacted with us at ICPAU, you frequently hear us tell businesses and SMEs in particular that your accountant or an accountant regulated by ICPAU can be your trusted business advisor, and for various reasons. But starting with, the research tells us that SMEs will look for business advice for the following reasons. One, that they lack the in-house resources. And that's understandable, because at a growth stage or at startup, SMEs would not generally have the resources to employ, a fully fledged, let's say, accounting department or finance department. And therefore, for many of the SMEs, they have limited resources internally, and therefore must seek this advice from a professional firm. There is also increased regulation now for SMEs, being companies. There are requirements under the company's law that they must comply with, but also the different sectors that they operate in can be highly regulated, and this increased regulation then drives the SMEs to look for advice. The size of the SME also impacts on the need for advice, and you can look at this in two ways. The larger entities will tend to look for advice from professional services providers, because partly because they have the resources, but the smaller ones as well look for the advice, again, because they don't have the internal resources, but need that advice for their growth. The age of the entity tends to impact on whether or not they will seek advice for similar reasons. And the advice can be sought at different stages, at startup, at growth stage, but even when they've matured. So age can be a factor. So, and something that Brenda touched on, when the SMEs are looking for funding, whether it's debt or equity, that decision alone will demand professional advice, because ordinarily the founder, the entrepreneur, does not have that expertise. Then the growth rate, intention to grow, again, those are factors that drive SMEs to seek out advice. The business life cycle, so depending on the industry that the entity operates in, there could be stages in the life cycle that drive the need for external assistance or external advice. Economic conditions, we've just, we have just been through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we all know how that has impacted on SMEs. The research says that larger or younger SMEs with higher levels of debt, or those seeking funding and exhibiting high growth rates or intentions to grow, are most likely to seek business advice. But also, the research also tells us that the personal characteristics of the entrepreneur, of the owner manager, also impacts on the SME's decision to seek accounting and business advice. So that point in particular is very important to us, because we want to speak to you, the SMEs, to ensure that you appreciate the value that accountants can bring to your business and to the potential for growth for your business. So, as I indicated, we as accountants have some very rare expertise. We have a very wide range of competencies that we can bring to bear in dealing with an SME. I qualified as an accountant more than 15 years ago, and in university I didn't study accounting. I came from a science background, and somehow I ended up in accounting. But what I recall when I was studying CPA, when I was doing the professional course and examinations, was just the breadth of information and knowledge and skills that were demanded or that were examined in that training. So the training of a certified public accountant, or a CPA, of a professional accountant, is quite broad in many ways that maybe some SMEs may not fully appreciate. So it covers everything to do with accounting, taxation, audit, financial management, information systems, general business advice, and a whole range of other areas. So the point is that SMEs would really benefit from the services that accountants provide, first and foremost because of the specific competencies that accountants have in delivering accounting and taxation services, but also because SMEs expect accountants to solve a whole range of problems, and accountants by training possess those skills in management accounting, in problem solving, in communicating and articulating the business issue or problem, in general business acumen, because accountants who generally have been exposed to business, industry, economics, and how the business fits into the wider context. They also will have some very good interpersonal skills, able to interact with the entrepreneur, with employees, and guide them. They are trained to think strategically, so a very core part of our training as accountants is in business strategy, because accounting fits into a much wider context. Accountants also bring their skills to bear in the area of change management as a small entity or one that is growing. There's going to be a lot of change in systems and processes, and all of these are areas that an accountant can support you in. Additionally, accountants have a very strong competence in risk management. A lot of our training revolves around how to identify, assess, mitigate, manage risks. So that's a very important area that we can support businesses around. So the delivery of advisory services to some extent would also require a high amount of innovation and creativity on the part of the accountant. So as I keep telling our own accountants, communication is very key. So the ability to communicate to the client and simplify the message or problem that is being communicated is very vital. But as I kept saying, going forward, there is a strong likelihood that accountants will be required by SMEs to be confident, to be analysts, to be facilitators, to be negotiators, and in many cases to educate the client, him or herself. So the point of this slide is that accountants can be a trusted business advisor to SMEs, and they possess a range of skills that can support the growth of an SME. So I've already made a point about being the most trusted advisor, and the research done across the world already indicates that amongst all other service providers to SMEs, accountants tend to be the most trusted because there's perception that they're the most ethical, but there's also a very strong respect and reputation provided by accountants in terms of their expertise and competence, which I've already talked about. So and this is what the research tells us, when SMEs are looking for an advisor, they will often think about the following things. They'll think about what type of advice they are seeking. And that's fairly obvious because at a particular point, the entity, the business is grappling with a particular problem. It could be a compliance issue in terms of getting the books and the financial reports prepared. It could also be in the area of tax because there's been interaction with the Uganda Revenue Authority and there are issues that need to be closed. It could be in terms of financial planning because there are projections that require to be med, and a whole range of other areas. So that's the first consideration. The second is the prior relationship with the accountant. So the research indicates that many times when the entity, the SME is seeking an advisor, that additional advice sought is based on the relationship already established with the accountant. So as we'll talk about in the subsequent slides, you find that in many instances, the SME will also rely on the auditor for additional services beyond the audit provided. Reputation and image of the accountant is also a very important consideration. And that is partly our role as ICPAU to protect that image and reputation and ensure that our services or the services of our members are highly valued. The personality of the owner manager, I already mentioned this. So the research indicates that some entrepreneurs are more aligned to seeking advice. Others, by personality, are more driven to try and do things themselves. Now, of course, that would have limitations because the expertise of the entrepreneur might not necessarily extend to the area of finance. So personalities are an important issue, but it's important to recognize that there is a need, and that need can only possibly be addressed by a third party, by the accountant. Competencies, I think, already touched on that issue. So the other important thing to think about is, which is a point I've been making as well, is that accountants and auditors will increasingly offer advice in areas not related to their traditional areas of expertise. So the traditional areas of expertise of accountants and auditors are generally in the areas of audit, taxation, financial management. But the businesses are increasingly asking accountants and auditors to provide advice around environmental matters, to provide advice around sustainability, to provide advice around climate change, for example. And some of those aspects are quite important to investors, to those lending to the SME. So you'll find that accountants are also increasingly building expertise in some of these non-traditional areas. So the portfolio of services that accountants can offer SMEs is so broad, but to highlight a few and to show you just the range of the kind of services that can come is in the area of acquisition or mergers, in the area of succession, financial management, strategy, tax planning, cash flow advice, financial advice, debt administration or structuring, business valuation, forensic accounting, insolvency, bankruptcy, costing and pricing, financial planning and budgeting, human resource, pensions, remuneration schemes, payroll, sustainability, IT services, skills development, and risk management. So again, to highlight some of the emerging areas, if you like, that we see accountants being called in to support on health and safety concerns, on HR services, succession planning, on foreign exchange, risk management, on environmental, CRS, corporate social responsibility advice. So accountants can provide all this, this whole range of services. So it's important as the SME interacts with the accountant or auditor to think through what support they are looking for above and beyond the audit and compliance work that the accountant can provide you. You might be pleased to find that the number of other problems that the accountant can help you solve. I think I've covered this slide, so I'll skip to this. So what benefit does it give the SME to rely on the advice provided by the accountant? The research tells us that that accounting and business advice accessed by SMEs is also associated with better performance. And that makes sense because, as you see, the accountant and auditor will help instill financial discipline within the entity. And this better performance that we're referring to is, for example, in the areas of a better survival rate, growth, profitability, better decision-making, learning, and improved relationships with various networks. So remember the sort of emerging areas that I touched on, HR, environmental issues, and general management support are also linked to the also have a high potential to impact SME performance, and that's what studies indicate to us. So, having appreciated that accountants are vital to SMEs and can be trusted advisors, I thought we'd spend a bit of time speaking about audit. Now, you recall from the start, I explained that an auditor in Uganda's context is someone who holds a certificate of practice and a license granted by ICPAU. So under the Accountants Act of 2013, for you to act as an auditor or to provide services to provide audit services to the public, you must hold a license from ICPAU. So by definition, auditors are professional accountants who have the competence to provide the range of services that I've just explained, but subject to regulation by ICPAU and strict compliance with the code of ethics that we implement. But the audit itself is a requirement of the law. So under the Companies Act of 2010, a company is required to appoint an auditor, and there are requirements within the company law that the auditor presents audited financial statements before the annual general meeting. So there's a legal requirement for an audit to be conducted. And an audit, again, in the context of the law, is an independent examination of the financial statements of the company, which will then allow the auditor to express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared in accordance with the approved standards, and they give a true and fair view of the state of affairs of the entity. So in less technical terms, what the audit is designed to achieve by law is to give confidence and assurance to the reader of the financial statements prepared by the business. We'll talk a bit more about this. So just to revisit the point that the audit itself is required by law, you would want to appreciate why that is designed that way. So as a company, and I'd assume for purposes of presentation that many of you on this call have companies, are owners of businesses that are registered as companies. As a company, your business enjoys the privilege of limited liability. So the company's law grants limited liability to your business. But for you to enjoy that privilege, the law then requires that your business be subjected to mandatory audits to safeguard the interests of third parties who supply you who lend money to you, who work for you, and any other stakeholders, the government and tax authority inclusive. So that then the audit is a service that is being provided to ensure that those who rely on the financial statements prepared by you have received a certain level of assurance. So in many ways, the audit is a small price to pay for the limited liability protection that you enjoy as a company. But there, over and above the legal requirement, and this is sort of the emphasis that we would like to provide to you, is that there is a lot of value that is derived by the SME from the audit. And in summary, we'll say that the audit will help save time and money for the business. How that is achieved is that the audit brings a very high level of financial discipline. First of all, by its nature, audit necessitates the need to prepare proper accounts. And you will be told by your auditor, for example, that there's an expectation that you have books of records. Those books of records are properly kept. There are financial statements derived out of those books of account, and the auditor then examines the financial statements and the records to be able to issue an opinion on those financial statements. And of course, there is a liability imposed on you both by company law and by tax law for failing to keep proper books of accounts and for failing to prepare adequate financial statements. So it's useful to keep that at the back of your mind, that the law actually requires you to prepare those books of accounts. So the audit will help instill the discipline, ensuring that that system is operating appropriately. And that the second useful byproduct of the audit is that it will help deter fraud, money laundering, and other illegal activities. So recall that the audit process is not designed to detect fraud. That's not the primary objective of the audit. However, there is no doubt that in the absence of an audit, fraud and errors are more likely to occur, and they're more likely to go undetected, and this can have some severe implications for the business. So the audit process is designed to build confidence and support the integrity of the financial reporting process. And all of this obviously helps nurture the right corporate culture and behavior of the SMEs. If you take the example of tax returns, for example, if you do not have audited accounts prepared, audited accounts or accounts audited based on properly kept books of record, you're likely to incur penalties, have compliance issues with the revenue authority, and all of this costs you time and money. So in many ways, it is far cheaper to pay the audit fee than to deal with the problems that come up as a result of not keeping the right records. In addition, auditors will help you identify weaknesses. Through the audit process, the auditor will often give you advice or recommendations around the weaknesses they've identified in your internal control system, or gaps in compliance, and those could be gaps in tax compliance, for example. And that helps you then avoid a situation where you either unintentionally or sometimes intentionally are breaking the law and therefore incurring a huge amount of penalties. And some of the penalties under the tax law can be quite severe. So further, the value of an audit to your business is that it helps reduce financing costs. And that's a vital point that Brenda mentioned. So the audited financial statements play a very key role in raising finance and capital. So remember that the lender to your business or someone seeking to provide capital equity to your business is relying on those financial statements to make an investment decision. And the fact that you keep financial statements and have them audited provides a very important level of assurance that they require for that decision to be made. So the financial statements and the reports that are prepared are very vital information and the lifeblood of modern business. So misleading or inaccurate information generally lead to bad decisions. And that's not just for, at the investment level, that also applies to you, the manager of the business, the owner of the business. It is quite likely that in the absence of audited financial statements, you are going to have inaccurate information and may eventually make some suboptimal decisions. So audits add value by equipping the multiple stakeholders with accurate information and help you, the manager of the business, make appropriate decisions. They help the investor make the appropriate decisions. And even for government and the tax authority, it helps them make better policy decisions. Again, in addition to those benefits that I've outlined, the audit process also helps you improve your business processes directly. So, as I mentioned, the auditor will, as part of the audit conducted, provide recommendations to you on how to improve your internal control system. And by addressing those gaps or those recommendations provided to you, there is a strong likelihood that your business processes will improve and your business will be able to thrive. You'd certainly face more challenges in the absence of that audit. So as I mentioned, auditors are trained professionals and they specialize in the area of risk assessment and evaluating internal control system. And I may emphasize that the audit process itself is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to assess risk, to evaluate internal controls, and then eventually produce the output of a report or an opinion on the financial statements you have prepared. So the key message really is that with the help of an auditor, you not only have extra time to run your business and generate revenue, but you'll also have peace of mind that the expert, the accountant auditor is taking care of some of those details that would make you lose sleep. So the audit, as I said at the start, will help you save time, which is a very important resource for you, the entrepreneur, but also money, because of some of the challenges that arise in the absence of an audit process.
Mark.
Yes,
Mark, just to apologies for cutting in here, but I'm just requesting all our listeners, in case you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or you can just paste it in the chat room, or if you want to ask it directly, you can raise your hand, and then because we want the session to be a bit interactive in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. So yes, so please do post those questions so that we can have a conversation around some of the issues you might raise. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll speak a bit about the role of ICPAU in supporting SMEs, but also in regulating the accountants. So hopefully at this stage, and to sort of summarize the key message I've been communicating in the last few slides, is that you've appreciated what you are as an SME, the challenges you have. You've appreciated what a business advisor can do for you. You've appreciated the role of the accountant as a business advisor to your entity. You've appreciated what an audit is and why you are required to have one. You've appreciated the value that you can get out of the audit process. So to round that up, I will talk about how ICPAU as a regulator supports SMEs. And we do this in many different ways. I'll touch on a few. One is one of the things we've done in the last few years is organize business clinics, or what we call what we're calling the Accountancy Services exhibition, which was a program where we would for a few days, 2 or 3 days, pitch up tents and receive SMEs and different business clients who would speak directly with our auditors and receive free pro bono or free accountancy services during the course of that program. And really that was just designed to raise awareness about the kind of work that we do and why it's vital to your business. We've modified that further, and we are now running a program where we invite any SMEs, including some of whom might be on this call, to apply to us and indicate your need for support in the area of accountancy services, and we can match you up with a practicing accountant willing to provide some level of support of free accountancy services. We also provide various resources to SMEs. So if you went to our magazine website, you'll be able to access articles, some literature about taxation of SMEs, for example, or regulatory requirements for SMEs, and various other kind of resources designed or targeting SMEs. We, of course, participate quite actively in policy and regulatory changes, especially those that impact on SMEs and also relate to reporting frameworks. So, for example, we've had quite interesting discussions with the Ministry of Finance and the Public Sector Foundation of Uganda, for example, on how we can support SMEs by providing financial management at their level, and also designing a reporting and accounting manual that is more suitable to the size of entities that they are. We partner with various organizations, including DFF, to develop programs that will serve the interest of SMEs. As I mentioned, we have trainings, seminars, workshops, conferences. So through our educational programs, we build competences amongst our members and students to be able to service the SME community. We conduct a little bit of research, and some of which have informed the presentation that I've just been making today. So that research helps us to understand what the needs of SMEs are and how they can be better supported. And that is tied to the guidance that we provide to our members as well, so that they are equipped to support SMEs as well as the larger organizations. We support our members even further in their dealings with SMEs. So we have a technical support desk at ICPAU, which our own members can access if they need resources, if there is some facilitation in terms of I don't know, negotiation, discussion with their clients, or some technical area of difficulty that they are facing. So we're able to provide the support that they require in those instances. As I already indicated, it's very important to us that the reputation and the trust that SMEs have in the profession is maintained. So we'll work on any campaigns or any programs to support and build that reputation. And of course, our CPDs or our continuing professional development programs also have some very specific content designed or related to SMEs. So in accessing the services of an auditor or an accountant, generally speaking, some of the considerations that the SME or that your business should have is, of course, the price. We do not at the moment prescribe a specific price that every accountant or auditor should charge. That is usually left to you and the auditor or service provider to agree on the cost. The key message I have made through this presentation is that the price you pay for those services in most instances is far smaller than the benefit you derive from the services that you get. But also, as I mentioned earlier, the type of advice that you're seeking will also determine which auditor you choose. Their expertise, sort of the experience with your industry is also probably something you look to as you evaluate different auditors and choose the one you want to work with. Generally speaking, the auditor that you access, as already indicated by law, is required to be a member of the institute, so they will hold professional certifications. So a very useful check for you to do before you engage with any auditor is to go to the ICPAU website, and there is an online searchable database where you can type in the name of the practitioner or the accountant or their firm and confirm whether or not they hold the certifications for that year. If they don't, then they are not they're not qualified, or they are not permitted by law to offer those services to you. So it's a very useful thing to do as you seek professional advice. If you are in any doubt about the qualification that your auditor holds, please reach out to us. And we'll share contact details at the end of the session. I think I talked about this. The prior relationship you have with the auditor in many instances will also guide the nature of additional services that you seek from him.
Sorry, Mark.
Yes,
a question from me, just to take you back on the issue of certification.
Sure.
Are the auditors listed on some kind of ICPAU website, or is there any public forum in which anyone can go and basically verify the certification status of the auditor that they've chosen, or is this still a closed kind of practice?
Thank you, Brenda, for that very important question. Yes, you should be, you can and should be able to verify the authenticity of the qualification held by your auditor, i.e. that auditor is licensed by ICPAU, and you can do this through the following ways. The first is that the law requires us to publish a list of practicing accountants and the accounting firms and the audit firms in the newspaper. So most likely in the first week of March, you will see in the New Vision a publication which will have a list of all licensed auditors in Uganda. and any auditor that you choose has to be on that list. If they're not on that list, then they are certainly not licensed by the institute. The law further requires us to gazette that list. What that means is we'll publish a similar list in the Uganda Gazette. So that's a statutory requirement, but also to provide sort of that legal communication that these are the auditors and accountants who are authorized to offer audit services in a particular year. Further to that, if you have not been able to access the newspaper or the gazette, then you can go directly to our website. So if you visit our website, which is www.icpau.co.ug, you will find two buttons. One is the first button enables you to find a practitioner. A practitioner is a practicing accountant. Is an accountant who is authorized to provide audit services. You can search that database and it will generate a result if the person is certified or licensed by the institute. The second avenue allows you to search for an audit firm. So if you click that button, it will show you a list of all the authorized firms, and you can search that list again by typing in the name, for example, Omona and Company, to see if such a firm is licensed or not. So that list on the website, in fact, is the most convenient, but it's also the most current. So there is no circumstance in which an auditor licensed to work in Uganda is not on that database. So should you fail to find such an auditor on that list, then you should communicate as such to that person and refer them to the institute in case they have any doubts about their certification. So Brenda, I hope that addresses the issue of where to find the auditor.
Yes, it certainly does. Thank you.
All right, so I think I need to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. So the other considerations for the SME to consider in choosing the auditor, the use of technology, as many of you will appreciate. Technology has impacted all businesses, including professional services. So even in the delivery of audit, many professional firms have embraced technology, which helps them to be more efficient and even provide better services to you. So those are some of the inquiries you might want to make in choosing your auditor. So in terms of the audit process itself, when you have chosen an auditor, you have appointed one as required by the Companies Act, then you need to prepare for the audit. And that audit will usually start with an official communication from the auditor. So once appointed, the auditor, there's an engagement letter that has been signed between the auditor and the directors or management of the company. The auditor will send you a letter communicating the start date of the audit and the process they intend to undertake and the kind of records they are seeking to look at. So you need to receive that communication, read it carefully, and provide the information that is required. Remember, it's your duty to keep those records, and it's also your duty to provide access by the auditor to those records. That's a legal requirement. So the auditor, once they access those records, they should now be able to very efficiently conduct the audit and deliver the output. The additional things you need to do in preparing for the audit is to ensure that your financial records are updated, they have been reconciled, they've been reviewed, all the supporting documents are available and very well organized, so that again, they're easily accessible for the auditor and even for yourself. The auditor will usually need some space, a room where they can sit and access those records. So be kind enough to provide that space to enable them do that work. As already mentioned, you need to understand the scope of the audit, and the official communication from the auditor should usually explain what the audit is designed to achieve, and also provide you with a list of the requirements that the auditor will look for, or the records that the auditor will want to look at as part of the audit. Please be accessible to the auditor. They will have questions. They will need a central contact person to deal with, and provide explanations that they need, provide information that they require, so that the audit is efficient. And in some instances, it might be far better to request for additional time on your part to make sure that the information is ready before the auditor comes in, because that saves the time of the auditor, and in fact impacts on the cost of the audit. So the audit process itself is very standardized. There is an initiation process, and there will usually be an opening meeting or an initial interview with senior, with management of the business. So ensure that someone senior is available to attend that opening meeting, because the auditor has a plan. They're required by the standards to develop a plan, and they will talk about that plan through that opening meeting. They will then execute the audit, which means they will look at those records, review them, make documentation. They'll ask to meet different people within the organization. They might also ask for meetings to reconcile or talk through findings that they have found. And they will make various requests for information. So please ensure you respond to them urgently. Once the audit is executed, then there is a conclusion which involves the findings being written down and communicated. The auditor will usually give opportunity for you to respond to those findings. So there will be a discussion. You should be able to provide clarity. So in the next minute or so, I will speak about the ethical principles that auditors are required to abide by. There are primarily 5. There's a lot more detail to this, but for purposes of this presentation, it's useful to remember that auditors are required to be persons of integrity. They're required to be objective. They're required to hold a high level of professional competence. They're required to behave ethically. So they must exhibit very high levels of professional behavior. And they're also required to respect confidentiality. So the auditor, whereas they are guaranteed access to your records by company law, they are also required to ensure that they maintain the highest level of confidentiality in relation to that information that they've accessed. And if at any point you are in doubt or have a fear about the level of confidentiality that the auditor is maintaining, please report that individual or firm to us, and we'll take the appropriate action. Which brings me to the second or last slide in terms of dealing with unethical behavior. So in the situation where any of those 5 principles I've just mentioned have been breached, you have the opportunity to report that firm or individual to us, and there is an investigation and disciplinary process at the Institute that will bring that will discipline that firm or accountant. so as to protect the reputation of the profession in Uganda. In terms of the disciplinary sanctions that are available to the disciplinary committee, which again is established under the Accountants Act, there are very many, but they include fines and penalties. They include a requirement for compensation by the accountant or auditor. The sanction might include the suspension of their registration or removal from what you call the role of accountants, which can be a very severe sanction, because it means then that person ceases to be an accountant within the meaning of the law. So the point on the slide is that there are sanctions available, and there is a body within the structure of the institute that addresses or deals with any complaints raised against members of the profession. So I think this should bring me to the end of the presentation. I do hope that you have appreciated what accountants do, why they're useful to you, who regulates them, and where you can access and report in case there is unethical conduct. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Mark. I think this has been very well articulated. We'll just take some questions. I have some questions in the chat box that I will read out. And if anyone else has any question that they want to make directly to Mark, please feel free. The first one is it important for me or my business to have an internal auditor, or does the financial accountant suffice? So I think this person is trying to basically get the difference between having an internal auditor, the difference between that and having a finance manager. What's the difference between the two?
Right. Thank you very much, Brenda, and thank you for that question. So you will appreciate that there is a difference between an internal and an external auditor, and to explain that difference is to understand, as I've been making in this presentation, that the external auditor is an external party, is a firm appointed to conduct a statutory audit of the financial statements of your business. So the external auditor is a firm that is licensed by the institute, and the role and mandate of that external auditor is primarily to conduct a statutory audit, but also, as explained, can provide a further range of services to your business. So that's the assurance and the role that the external auditor provides. Now, over and above that, for many businesses, and especially as your SME grows, it will be strongly recommended, even by the external auditor, it will be strongly recommended that you also put in place an internal audit function. You appoint or employ an internal auditor. So who is that internal auditor? An internal auditor is a member of staff, is your employee, first and foremost. So is not, the internal auditor would usually not be independent of the business in the sense that they are not, they are an internal party. There are instances where the internal audit function could be outsourced to a professional firm, but the philosophy is still the same, that the internal auditor is within the business itself. Now, the role of the internal auditor is a little different from that of the external auditor. The role of the internal auditor is to review your governance, risk management, and compliance practices, and ensure that they meet the requirements of the standards of best practices, and provide value-adding advice to you to ensure that your system of internal controls is working appropriately. So, in summary, the work of the internal auditor and the external auditor is complementary, and especially for your business as it's growing, you'll find that there will be a need for an internal auditor who is able to provide you with real-time advice, because they're available to you throughout the year. The external auditor is only available to you at the year end, for example, for a few weeks or a month of the entire year. So hopefully that paints a picture of the difference between internal and external audit. Now, again, to emphasize the point, those two groups of professionals are also very different from the accountant or the finance manager that you employ. The finance manager or the accountant in your business is there to prepare the books of records. So there's a bookkeeping role, and prepare management accounts and reports on a regular basis, usually monthly or quarterly, and also prepare the financial statements that are audited by the external auditor. So I hope that helps you understand better those different sets of professionals who are all vital to your growth as an SME.
Thank you so much for that. I think that was quite well spelled out. The next question comes in from Dison Okumu, who is asking that how can ICPAU help him get affordable accounting packages complete with training for different SMEs? Is that something that ICPAU does?
Thank you, Dison Okumu. The accounting packages that you can use to prepare your books of records and prepare financial statements are various. Certainly, as ICPAU, if you reached out to us, we can point you to some of the different services or the different packages that you can utilize. But I think we would most likely point you to an external auditor or an accounting firm that can help you, first of all, identify the right package or generally speaking, the right accounting system to put in place for your business that will support you in training your personnel to be able to implement that system and deploy it within the business. So quite likely the person you need to speak to in terms of what package to use, which is most appropriate, how to implement it, is your auditor or accounting firm. And we've already mentioned that you can access that list from our website, but you can also write directly to us, and we'll point you to some specific firms, perhaps that you can speak to and support in that nature, and they will tend to find a solution that is cost friendly, that is most appropriate to your circumstances.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think also just before I move on to Jude's question, Dison was also asking that most of the SMEs are located up country. So he is inquiring how they can access your services, and if you have regional offices in case they are not able to access you at your head office in Kampala.
Okay, thank you, Dison. Starting with the accounting firms, the firms that we license are spread across the country. So there are firms.
Mark, I think he's referring though to ICPAU.
Okay. Okay. So ICPAU has a head office at Bukota Street, plot 42 Bukota Street. We don't have regional offices at the moment, but you can very easily access us through our website, through our social media platforms, through our emails. We have members and accounting firms working across the country. In the event that you can't access us directly, we would encourage you to approach any accountant, any professional accountant or accounting firm, wherever you're based. Those individuals or those firms will put you directly in touch with us. They have access to a lot of the information that we make available to them to be in a position to support you. So, so I think a good place for you to start if you found that you could not come to Bukoto Street in where our head offices are, is to approach a firm or an accountant near you.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next question is from Jude Opima, and he says he's 1 year into business, and he confesses that his accounting books are bad because focus has mainly been on him executing his business because expenses outweigh revenue by a landslide. And he now wants to start cleaning up. So his question is, what do I do to reflect old records during cleanup? Where do I find affordable accounting services? I think that is something you've responded to. So maybe you respond to the first part of his question. What do I do to reflect old records during cleanup?
Thank you, Mr. Pima, for that question. You are not alone. As I emphasized through this presentation, a lot of SMEs at startup in the growth stage, at 1 year of age as you are usually in that same situation, because the initial focus of the entrepreneur, of the business, is to survive. Many times there's not a lot of attention being paid to the accounting and bookkeeping that is in place. So the good news is that problem can be solved. So our accountants, our auditors are trained to solve that problem. Even in the absence of appropriate records, they'll help you rebuild them. They'll help you create systems that capture the information that you need to prepare financial reports. They will help you put in place simple, affordable systems. And those systems can be manual, but they will also, in many instances, also be electronic. So in the form of the accounting packages, for example, that we've just been talking about. So don't worry, don't fear. You have now realized that you need an accountant, and you can approach us. You can write to us or visit our website, access that list. Or if you need specific guidance on who to work with, we can speak with you, understand what your challenges are, and point you to a professional who will help you, who will be most helpful to you in the circumstances you're in. Again, to emphasize the point that the value that the accountant auditor will provide to you is far greater than the cost or the charges that they will require you to meet. And again, our professionals are highly flexible. They will speak with you and understand your constraints and work to find an amicable solution to your problem.
All right. Thank you for that, Mark. The next question really is around at what point should we start auditing our books? Is it when we are profitable or even when we are loss making? I guess they want to know at what point really does it start? So maybe you can just throw some light on that.
Thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. And the answer to that is in both instances, both when you're making profit and when you're making loss. In fact, I would argue that you need the audit and the right records even more when you are making losses, because there might be various reasons for your loss-making situation. Perhaps it's just the stage, the cycle of the life cycle of your business. As it starts out, certainly there's a lot more expenditure than revenue that is being developed. But it could also be that there are leakages that you are not aware about, which are creating the losses. So in both instances, you need the audit to ensure that there are appropriate systems in place to give you the assurance that things are working as they should be, to also give you advice. As already mentioned, the audit process is designed to advise you on what improvements you can make to your systems, to your internal control systems. And of course, the result of having an audit in place is that then you have reliable information that can help you make certain decisions, help you decide on how much expansion to make, how much capital to access, what the cost of that capital that you're accessing, whether the business as exists can sustain the finance cost that you bring on board, a whole range of issues, and you can actually have a discussion with the auditor about those matters, and they are in position to support you.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question is in regards to what you mentioned earlier about ICPAU being offering pro bono services. So who exactly qualifies for these pro bono services that you do offer? And maybe you can just break down briefly what services they are, what limitations you have on the pro bono services that you offer.
Thank you for that question. So who can access pro bono services? Our criteria is that you are an SME and you are constrained in terms of resources and capital, and you have a need that you can clearly articulate and we can appreciate. So that's one. Secondly, is that you have some kind of records. So you must prepare some sort of financial statements, which we might ask to look at, and that would be the basis for sort of enlisting you under that program. The third sort of criteria is that you belong to some kind of association. So depending on the industry that you're in, you're most likely subscribing to a business association, tree growers, I don't know, beef product association. The list is endless. So the reason for that is we want to work with those associations because they themselves will also help us identify who is most deserving of the pro bono services that we seek to provide. So assuming that has been addressed and you have been selected, then the range of services is endless. It can be any one or all of the services that I mentioned in my presentation. So there will be a discussion. Maybe before that, we will, once you've been identified, we'll match you with an accountant who is willing to provide the pro bono services. So we have already engaged different accounting firms. They have set aside some small resources to support the pro bono services that they offer. So you certainly appreciate they can't provide this service to everyone. So there is a sort of a limitation to the number of firms or entities that can benefit from the service. So once we paired you with this firm, then they will discuss with you, appreciate the circumstances of your business, and most likely select the area where they feel they can make the most impact. So it could just be in the area of helping you keep better books or records, or if you already have them, to help you prepare financial statements, or if you're seeking funding, a loan, help you, prepare the projections or business plan, or whatever the documentation that the bank or the the capital provider is looking for. And again, depending on the resources available to that firm or that practicing accountant, it can be for a short period of time or it can be extended. Please note that the understanding is that this is at this point of need, and subsequently you will have to pay for the services. The idea is to show you what we can do for you to appreciate the benefits of the services we provide, and then have you pay for that service like you would for electricity or water or any other expenditure that you incur. Hi, Brenda. I hope I have addressed the who, what, where, when of the pro bono services.
Yes, you really have. So I was, and thank you for that. So we'll just take 2 more questions and then we will wrap up this session as we are 6 minutes. We've gone 6 minutes beyond our slated time. I think the first, the question that I have, Mark, kind of ties into what you just said. So in terms of cost, are there any cost limitations on ICPAU's side in terms of, for example, not exposing SMEs to being overcharged? Because, you know, most of them struggle with the fees, you know. So then are there any regulations or restrictions that have been put in place to cap some of the fees that audit firms can charge SMEs, or it's open and it's basically at the, you know, for every audit firm to charge whatever they please?
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you for that question. So the answer is no at the moment. So there is no prescribed fee that the service provider, the accountant or auditor, is required to charge when they provide services to you. There are very good reasons for that. One is that we have broad guidance that we have given to the practicing accountants, to the firms, on what to consider when they set fees. So we actually have we call it a quality assurance process to monitor how they set fees and what considerations they take into, you know, they factor into in setting their fees and ensuring that they comply with that broad framework. So there's a framework, principles that they're required to comply with, but no set fee, because the fee depends on your business, the size of your business, the complexity of the operations of your business, the nature of industry you're in, the level of records that you're keeping within your business, the maturity of your financial reporting system and process. So there's a whole range of factors that play into what the fee is. The further advantage to you as an SME is you have a whole range of firms. At the moment, we have more than 260 licensed firms that you can choose from. So we find actually that for the most part, most firms charge a slightly lower fee than we think is appropriate in the circumstances. So in fact, we are working to address that, because when they don't charge an appropriate fee, then you do not get the level of service and the skills that they can bear to help you grow your business. But that's a discussion we can have at another point. But I think the point is that in our view, the services that the fees that they charge are reasonable. There are requirements that they must meet in terms of setting that fee. There are systems, the quality management systems that they're required to put in place to ensure that the quality of service that they provide is commensurate to the services that they offer. And above all, which has been the central point of my presentation, is that you need to think about the benefits you're deriving out of that service. So choose the right auditor, accountant, interrogate and ensure they have the competence, understanding of the industry, are going to give you value, negotiate and agree on the fee, and derive the benefit out of that service. In our view, the benefits you'll get will, in most instances, outweigh whatever cost that you're being charged for the service. If for some reason you feel cheated, for lack of a better word, by the kind of fees that are being charged by the firm, you have the avenue of reporting directly to us. So you can go to our website and post your complaint or raise your issue, write to us, whichever medium you want to use, and we'll interrogate that issue and find a way of settling it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. We really do appreciate you taking off time to basically take us through this session, and a big thank you to all our participants. I hope you're leaving this session more knowledgeable than you joined an hour or so ago. And like Mark mentioned, you can always reach out to ICPAU for any queries, and we really hope that this kind of changes the way that you conduct business going forward. As I mentioned earlier, the deal flow facility is here to support all SMEs. Kindly, if you feel that you qualify to the deal flow facility and have not yet put in your application, kindly visit our website, put in your application, and then we will link you up. We will support you and try and link you up to a matching and appropriate investor. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Mark. And I wish you all a lovely morning as we go into the afternoon. Have a good day.
Good day to you and good day to everyone on the call. Thank you. It has been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.